Typically, for most CEOs and business owners, it's I need more revenue or need more customers. I need more and better talent, or I need to retain the great talent I've got, or I might need to try and get some investment on board to scale my business to do more good. Those are the buckets that the challenges sit, or the opportunities sit for a CEO. B Corp is this lever that you can use to pull in any or all of those parts of your business and possibly give you some acceleration to getting to where you want to be better. The one piece of feedback that I consistently get from any engagement I have with a company is, wow, Tim, you just brought the energy. And it's like, well, if you can't have some fun while you're trying to change the world, like, you're doing it wrong. And I think that's where a lot of sort of do good, let's change the world. It's sackcloth, it's, self-flagellation. It's like, you're evil, you're bad, boo. And it's like, it turns out people don't want to hang out with you when you're like that. But if you're like, hey, you think your party's good, you should come and check out our party.
Hi, and welcome back to Care Beyond Profits. I'm Azura Ali. In this episode, I'm joined by Tim Jones. He's also known as the B Corp Bloke, and he's the director at Grow Good Limited. Today, Tim has helped certify around a third of New Zealand's B Corp community. He works with businesses to prove that profits and purpose can move together. In this episode, we talk about how he spent years in the medical device sales, standing in operating theatres while surgeons used his products that he sold and slowly realized that it was used for profits over prioritization of patient outcomes. He also talks about hitting a breaking point where he walks away from the industry with no plans, questioning whether the system itself was broken. We go into a ton of details around the B Corp, and I'm sure you'll find his story very valuable. If you enjoy this episode, please like this video, leave a comment, and share it with someone who may benefit. This helps us keep bringing you conversations from inspiring leaders who care beyond profits. Please remember to subscribe, and thank you so much for supporting this cause. Let's get into it. Tim, welcome to the show. It's so exciting to have you here today, and I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Thanks for having me.
Before we start, I just wanted to start off with a little bit about yourself for our audience. So could you just explain to us a little bit about how was your environment when you were growing up, and what shaped you?
That is a great question. I guess, yes, I'm originally from the UK. I don't know, when I meet people, I don't think I have an accent. And my wife and my daughter sort of forget that I have an accent. So, and then occasionally they kind of go, oh yeah, you're British, aren't you? Because you speak funny. So I grew up in the south of England, but I'm fairly culturally confused. My dad, who passed away almost, 9 years ago, he was a very passionate Welshman. So I have a big Welsh flag in front of me. You can probably see, if you're listening on or watching on video, there's a French flag behind me because my birthday is the 14th of July, which is Bastille Day, the French Fête Nationale, where they celebrate the beginning of their republic. But I'm also half English, and I've lived in New Zealand for 20 years. So I feel like I'm just a human of this planet, of no fixed abode. But yeah, I grew up in the south of England. I wouldn't say, like, I didn't have like a traumatic upbringing, but it's fair to say that my mum and dad probably shouldn't have stayed together for as long as they did. So quite a tense. One of the clear memories I have was when I was at high school, and I was talking to like my best mate at school, and we were like, oh, so what are you doing for the holidays? And he said, oh, I'm going away with my mum and dad, my two older brothers, and they were quite a bit older. Like, their two girlfriends come along, and we're going to Spain. We hire a house, and it's really amazing. And I was like, but don't you just argue all the time? And he's like, no. I was like, so maybe that's my family. You just think that what you're doing is what everyone's doing when you're a kid. So that was kind of like a real okay, so interesting. So I think that I ultimately got into sales as like my first proper job. And I think the ability for me to hear two sides of an argument and hold the middle space and try and seek the truth is something that comes from that tension of seeing mum and dad arguing all the time, basically, and kind of going, well, I can see where he's right, but I can kind of see where you're right. And maybe if you just adjusted your positions here. So I think I'm pretty good at hearing both sides of an argument. I think that's quite a key skill that I learned from an early age. But yeah, other than that, I went to what would be described as a good school in the UK. So people listening in New Zealand, it would be like the equivalent of a King's or Christ College type school. They were called masters, not teachers, and they were generally masters, not mistresses. And it was all boys school. So quite an interesting upbringing. And then ended up. I kind of went to university, and again, this is like a really interesting when you kind of reflect on why you are who you are. Well, which I don't know that, again, I don't know that everybody does that, but I think if you do pause for a minute, maybe in your life, and go, actually, why am I who I am, and why do I do what I do? A big defining moment for me was at the high school I was at, that there was no conversation around, do you want to go to university or not? It was, which universities are you applying for? Which, when you reflect back, you go, well, that's quite a big, differentiator in terms of paths forward in life. Realistically, I probably should have left school at 18 and started a business. I would have created some kind of side hustle and just been getting on with it. But I was kind of sent on the university path. And so in the UK at 18, you do typically 3 subjects. And I chose biology, geography, and history, which was a really weird mix. And there was only one other kid in the school, Ollie Griesby. Me and him were the only 2 kids in the entire school who chose those 3. Because typically, if you're doing A science, you do all science. And if you do A art or an art, you do all arts. But we did this weird mix. And for me, it was like, well, history tells you your place in time, geography gives you your space in time, and biology kind of gives you the how it has all kind of come together as to be a thing. So on the back of that, when I was sort of told, you need to think about university, I kind of thought, well, where would I like to go? I thought I'd like to go and explore my Welsh heritage, so I applied to go to Cardiff University. And I thought, out of all the subjects that I'm doing, medieval history is the one that interests me the most. So I ended up going and getting a degree in medieval history, specialising in England and France, 1000 to 1200, which is about as useful degree as you could possibly imagine.
You must be the first person I've met that's done a medieval history so far, so definitely a tick for that. Yeah.
I mean, there's not many of us in the UK, but when you get to New Zealand, there's not much medieval history, full stop. So, it's a bit wasted over
here. So you went from medieval history, and then where to next? So did you find a role after that, or did you decide it wasn't quite what you're going to do with that degree? Or
I look back and I do think, well, I was too young and immature to get the most out of my university degree. In many ways, I'd like to go back now and do more medieval history with maybe some philosophy or anthropology. Like, that's the kind of stuff that interests me on the side. What I really wanted to do, and mainly because a bunch of my mates were doing it, was join the army. So when I was at university in the UK, they have, I don't know if they have it, they probably do have something similar over here. It's a thing called the OTC, or the Officer Training Corps. So it's kind of like they training you to become, ready to be an officer in the British Army. And so a bunch of my mates we all did that, housemates and what have you. And that was really my plan, was to go join the army, do 3 years. It's kind of like, put it up in the air, go and do 3 years doing some stuff, and then get out of the army. And then there's normally a good network of people. Anyway, I applied for the officer selection, and I basically got turned. They said, we don't want you. I wish I had this letter. I probably threw it away in a fit of rage the day I got it. But the day so you do like this 3 days of psychometric and physical testing. And you get either, yes, congratulations, you can go and train as an officer, or you get, hey, you need to go and do this pre-course to because we just want to test out, whether you're going to make it. Or you get what I got, which was basically, do not write to us ever again. You are untrainable in Her Majesty's Forces as an officer. Like, even if we called up the whole population, we probably wouldn't ring you. So, you're going to be okay. So so that was my plan. And that got completely thrown up in the air. So I went and lived in Australia for a year. I just thought, go and take a gap year, because that's what kind of people do. I don't know whether, I suppose in the New Zealand context, it's like the OE. So I thought I'll go to Australia, just find myself, go and see what's what. Ended up working. So, I literally, most people from the UK go to Sydney when they go to Australia. I thought, well, I don't want to go to Sydney because I'll end up living with a bunch of Brits in a house full of Brits, working in a company full of Brits. I'm just going to hang out with. And if I'm going to do that, I might as well just move to Manchester or Edinburgh or, whatever. So I moved to Brisbane. And there's back then, this was 2001-ish, 2001, 2002. Like, there were very few British expats in Brisbane. And people were just they were like, look, like, what are you doing here? Like, why have you come to Brisbane? It's like, well, because it's not full of British people. I want to meet some Aussies. And what was really kind of weird, but also, I don't know, is like, it's how the universe works. I walked into the Maya Centre in Brisbane looking just to try and get a retail job. I was just like walking down the street, just looking for anything really. And there was a sign in the Canterbury rugby store saying, position available, apply within. So I turned up like, hey, I'd seen the ad on the door. I'd like to apply. And the guy behind the counter, he's now a really good mate of mine, Tyson, literally brother from another mother. I'm 6'4", 120 kgs. He's like 6'4". He was probably, well, we were both a bit, well, I was definitely lighter then. He's maintained his lightness. So we were both like 6'4", 100 kgs. And he's like, okay, so you look like you play rugby. I was like, yeah. I've literally just moved over. He goes, oh, who did you play for in the UK? And I rattled off like the university. I played for this team in South Wales, Glamorgan Wanderers, and said, oh, I also played for the British Army. And he said, oh, fantastic. I'm an ex-Navy rugby player. So as far as I'm concerned, you got the job. So it's like this really weird how the thing that had just rejected me led to me getting my first opportunity.
Wow.
And then
The irony.
yeah, I know. It's just like, and then Tyson, he'd like been in the Navy, he'd left, and then he was planning on maybe going back in, and he ended up going back in, and he's been in the Navy now for like 20 years. And all his mates were either current or recently ex-serving Army Navy guys. So I left this world of all my mates were getting in the army, and I was like, cool, and go to Australia and like find myself, and I ended up finding the same people. And then I ended up, Tyson introduced me to one of his mates who his dad was an ex-army guy, because Tyson's dad was ex-army, and I ended up living with this family, the Tolhursts in Brisbane, who are like my Aussie mum and dad now. Yeah, and it just like, it was really cool. I lived with an Australian family. They had a like a spare room under, because they have I don't know if you've been to Queensland, but they have those big Queenslander houses where they've got like on stilts almost, but quite often they fill in the underneath. And so they had this room that they had for rent for foreign language students, and they said, oh look, we don't have a student at the minute, if you want it, the room's yours. So I ended up being part of an Aussie family for a year, and absolutely loving it. And just, I did a bunch of low paid casual work. I worked, like I say, worked in Canterbury rugby store. I worked for 3 months as a rugby coach for the for the Queensland Rugby Union. Just like really random bits and bobs, but it's quite cool. I think it's it's a really cool experience just to go to. I mean, yes, it's an English language speaking country. The legal system's the same, like, very similar. But even still, just to parachute yourself into a foreign city I knew no one, I'd get a job, make some friends. It's quite affirming on humanity, just to know that, actually, if you did end up in the middle of nowhere, someone's probably going to look after you. So I did that for about a year, and then realised because I was basically on a working holiday visa, so the maximum I could work for any company was 3 months, and then you had to move on. So it's like, it's pretty tenuous. I'm working minimum wage jobs. There's all this stuff I want to go and see and do in Australia, but I've got no time or money to go and see it because I'm earning no money, and I don't have any time off from doing it. So I started ringing around a few mates in the UK, just saying, any jobs that you can think of, what could I do? And one of my mates, he was like, oh, have you thought about this medical repping or medical sales, which is what he was doing? And I was like, no idea what you're on about. He said, look, when you come back, drop me a note and I'll show you what it's all about. And so I was like, came back home, dropped him a note, and he said, wait, come out with me for the day. I was like, okay. So he said, make sure you wear a suit, and if my phone rings, stay quiet, because no one's meant to know that you're doing this. I won't name names. And so I literally just followed him, went round with him for a day. So he was selling hips and knees to orthopedic surgeons. And this is a guy I knew from the rugby club who, you'd see him in the rugby club and you kind of go, you're not the smartest guy that I could probably ever imagine hanging out with, because you do some fairly silly things after you've had a couple of beers. Meanwhile, in his work environment, we're turning up to meet an orthopedic surgeon, and the surgeon puts the x-rays up of the patient and goes, oh, so what would you recommend for this procedure, Mr. Son, to my mate? And he's like, oh, yeah, well, I think you probably need a size 6 on the femoral component, and I'd maybe go 6.5 on the tibial. And I'm like, looking at him going, you're this idiot I play rugby with, and you're just telling an orthopedic surgeon how to do a knee replacement. So after a day with him, I was like, man, your job looks really, really cool. What do I do? And he said, well, look, I'll put your name forward. So because I was recommended by someone currently in the company, I basically got onto the Johnson & Johnson graduate training program. So like a lot of those big multinationals like Johnson Johnson, Procter and Gamble, Unilever, they have these grad programs. So because I was a recommendation, I got through like the first three stages or something to one of the latter stages. So yeah, did two more, like a round of interviews, a round of psychometric testing, and me and I think it was me and one other guy got the two grad jobs for the orthopedic. Um, uh, what do you call it? Department in the company. So yeah, did a year learning. So I think it was within the first 6 weeks, you had to pass an exam on anatomy and physiology. So you had to learn the anatomy and physiology, general anatomy and physiology of the body, and then you had to very quickly learn the anatomy and physiology specifically of just the knee joint. The knee joint is the most complex
Wow.
joint in the human body, so you have to know the mechanics of it and the physiology of it as well as an orthopedic surgeon does. Because when my mate was standing there saying, "Yeah,
Mm.
you need to do da da da," you need to know that, because you can't, if you tell a little bit of a mistruth or you're not quite on the ball when you're telling an orthopedic surgeon, then they go and do the surgery. It's like it's on you as much as it is on them. So yeah, I passed all that, and again, it was kind of like having that biology background. I was able to, um, you know, understand it. Yeah, passed all those exams, and then yeah, I'm out there selling hips and knees to orthopedic surgeons in the UK, and then met a Kiwi girl, as you do, in a sort of party just outside London. We were going out for about a year, and then my training program was coming to an end, and the job that I really wanted actually came up. So to be the hip and knee rep for South Wales was like fantastic. Get back to my uni roots. Love Cardiff. Beautiful. It's an amazing city, close to the outdoors, lots of nightlife. Concerts, big stadium, and I applied for the job and basically would have got it, but the next day after the interview that I had for it, they closed down one of the other divisions in the company, and there was only like four people in that division. So any open vacant roles were offered to them first, rather than them having to leave the company. So it's really interesting, like these sliding door moments. I should have got that job, but I didn't, because it was given to someone else who didn't even interview for it. Because I'd been on the graduate training program, I very quickly got a job. I basically emailed all the recruitment companies, and they said, "Yeah, look, you've got a year's more experience than anyone else who's applying for a job here with any of these companies. So yes, you'll get a job." And so yeah, I did. And so I did about 10 years all up selling medical devices. Yeah.
You ended up being a B Corp certified. You call yourself the B Corp guy, and so
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about how did you get segue into that from sales, because that's two different views altogether. So you tell us
Just a little
how
bit.
did that plan out and what doors opened up for
Yeah.
you?
So the medical device sales is inherently quite purposeful and meaningful, because like literally your job, okay, yes, you sell your widget to the surgeon, but in the type of stuff that I was doing, the big part of my job was to then I would stand in the corner of the operating theatre, and when the surgeon's using your product, you're going, "Oh no, left a bit, right a bit, no, don't, okay, you did use that thing, okay, right, can you get that tool out? What you now need to do is go and get this thing," and da 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 da. So it's a very responsible technical job, which you being there is leading to a better health outcome for the patient. So it's quite meaningful. But some of the companies I work for, so Synthes is one example. The medical device industry more broadly, they are fundamentally profit driven at the heart of it, and more so than patient outcome driven. And so one example of this, so Synthes had acquired a company called Norian. This would have been about 2000 and I don't know, mid 2000s, and bone cement is something that's been used historically for quite a long time. So they used to put dentures in or false teeth in with this bone cement. It's been used in hip replacements for hips and knees for many years. So they acquired this bone cement product so it's really common that for particularly like little old ladies, you see them hunched over, and that's because they have really poor bone quality, and basically the vertebrae in their spine just collapse. And to put an old lady through a big spinal surgical procedure with screws and rods, like it's not much fun. It typically leads to not great outcomes. And so what they thought was, if we could inject this cement into the vertebrae, we could kind of like jack it up a little bit, and it's non-invasive, and away we go. the first procedure that they did, the patient died on the operating table because the bone cement, basically, it was too runny and it created too much heat. So it severed their aorta and spinal cord, and the patient died. Now, at that point, you'd probably go, okay, back to the drawing board, but they didn't. And the reason they didn't, and the reason why they did it, I think it was at least 3 more surgeries, is because the surgeon who was doing the procedures was a shareholder in the company. And he knew that if they could get this product to work, it was a completely new market that they were creating that was worth globally billions of dollars. And so it was, I think it was the president for North America, or the president of sales for North America. He went to jail, and so it was basically like this last man standing, which is really common in sort of corporate litigation. Is okay, you're not all going to go to jail, but we need to find who was the person who responsibility sits with. And so clearly, the guy who owned the company, a gentleman called Hans-Jörg Wyss, who I think at the time was like the 17th richest man in Europe, well, he ain't going to go to jail. The surgeon's like, well, I ain't going to go to jail. So yeah, the president for North America, or I think I can't remember if it was the president or the president of sales, he went to jail, and it was mainly based on the last man standing, because his was the final email allegedly that sort of said, "Hey, so are we all agreed that we keep going then?" So it's like, cool, complicity's with you. You're doing the jail time. So there was stuff like that going on, and when you're in the industry, the way they, I guess, pitch it to you is, look, you can't make an omelet without breaking some eggs. It's like medical misadventure, we're trying to push the boundaries here. And you sort of, at the time, you kind of go, okay, yeah, I kind of get it. But then about a couple of years later, every major medical device company was subpoenaed by the US Department of Justice because there was a whistleblower in from one of the companies. She was in charge of booking travel and accommodation. And it was a well-known industry kind of fact that if you had a really big surgeon, as in a lot of money going through your, of products through their business, they would be paid to go to conferences and what have you. And then, which that was kind of above board. It's like, hey, we want you to come and talk at a conference. You're an expert on this topic. We'll pay for you to come and talk at this conference. It's kind of like consulting fees. But it very quickly had bled into, oh, okay, well, your company's offering that, but this company will also bring my wife and 2 kids, and they will put us up on the Champs-Elysees for 2 weeks after. So it became, like this battle for all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, this whistleblower said, hey, look, I've got the evidence here that we're paying for, family members and God knows what, da 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 da. And again, the defense of all the companies was, yes, but we're all doing it. It's a level playing field. It's not like just one of us is doing it. And so again, when you're in the system, you kind of go, no, I suppose, yeah, we are all doing it. So, it's just a marketing expense and blah, 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 blah. But then what really got me eventually, what really did it for me was going through the earthquakes here in Christchurch. So 2010, 2011, it's what I call the existential wet fish to the face moment. It's, a near-death experience, the death of someone close to you, and or the birth of a child. So 2010, 2011 earthquakes, 2012, my daughter was born. That is what led to me going, actually, like, why am I working for these companies? They are knowingly killing people. They are knowingly doing dodgy financial incentives. And if there's one industry in the world where you should come into this industry in a not good place and walk out of it in a good place, it should be healthcare. Yet actually, in some cases, the hospitals, the surgeons, the companies, none of them actually really care. They just look at the human with some dollar signs and how do we maximize the dollars out of this? And if we lose a few on the way, oh well. And you kind of just go, like, if that's happening in medical, what's happening in companies that are completely, or in industries that are completely unregulated and actually are just aiming to make as much money as possible? Like, whoa. So I got to a point where I was like, I just can't do this anymore. So I quit the industry with nothing to go to. I interviewed for about 60 different roles, and I kind of thought, well, I'm in my mid-30s. I should probably get a leadership position, and I want to get anything anything outside of medical. And we'd moved up to Auckland post-quake. So I was like, we want to move back to Christchurch. And so I ended up getting a job as general manager for a firm of surveyors and engineers, which was just like, cool. It's just completely random, completely different. And, I quickly realized, well, hang on a minute. I kind of know now that the surgical community are pretty money hungry and entitled. And, there's some bad behavior going on. And then I met commercial property developers in the rebuild of Christchurch, and it's like, oh my days, like again, like there's no regulation here around you making as much money as possible. And every conversation that you'd have with any property developers or commercial property owners was, I just want a building that's put up quickly and cheaply, and I don't care about the human and environmental impact of it. So I don't care if it's built cheaply and quickly, if it's cold, if it's too hot. Like, I just want a cheap building with a maximum return. And it's like, wow, okay, it's not just the medical, it's kind of seemingly every industry. Like, this is how we've built the system. And I just thought, I can't do this for another 20, 30 years of my lifetime. Now that, it's like, once I don't know if you've heard the allegory of Plato's cave. It's like, once you've kind of, the veil's been lifted, and you're kind of like, that's actually how it all works. Okay, yeah, this is,
you can't
pretty
unsee
average.
it.
You can't unsee it. And it's like, I don't really want to be, and I don't want to be a part of this. So what do I do? And back then, this would have been, like I say, 2013, 2014. It's like, there was one B Corp in New Zealand. So it's not like there was this world of, so working for this working for this property company, there was some really weird internal HR stuff going on. There was like really weird team culture. So I just started Googling team culture plus environmental stuff. So like my search history was all about team culture and better environmental outcomes. And one day this thing called B Corp just popped up, and I was like, wow, this looks interesting. Like, this seems to be a bit of a solution to this whole just make money at all costs. And so I had a quick look and thought, there can't be any of these in New Zealand. This is clearly a very American-based company. I had a quick look. I was like, damn it, there is one in New Zealand. I thought, there won't be one in the South Island. I was like, damn it, they're in Christchurch. So I was like, okay, look, let's go and see what it's all about. Anyway, this is good. Because I thought it would be really cool to be the first one in New Zealand. I was like, okay. So I emailed this guy, Steve Arder, CEO of Eagle Protects, and was just like, hey, I've just stumbled across this bee thing. Can I come and have a cup of tea with you? And he's like, yeah. So we booked, like a 45-minute meeting, and I left his office about 3 hours later. Just like, it's like, okay, there is a whole different way. It's like, yes, make money, and it's okay to make money, but just be cognizant how you're making the money and what you do with the money. It's like, well, yeah, that's kind of really what we should have been doing in the medical world. It's like, yeah, let's aim to make money, but let's not kill people on the way. Like, let's make sure that it's actually properly tested. And it's, what a crazy idea. Yeah, we might make a few billion less, but we're still probably going to make billions, so we'll probably be okay. So yeah, that was kind of the beginning. And initially I was just a bit of a B Corp groupie. Steve was doing a lot back in the day, and he still does, and Eagle still does, to sort of raise awareness of the movement. And I was like, dude, I will just turn up and hand out lollies or canapes or like drinks, whatever you're doing, like, just invite me. And then he introduced me to the CEO of B Lab at the time. And I just said to them, look, if you can pay me like $100,000 a year, I'll go and knock on the door of every business in New Zealand and tell them about this B Corp thing and just build a pipeline. And she was, if I was getting paid, I'd think about how I could get the money to get you paid. But she was doing it basically for free, the first CEO. And then I left the property consultancy. I networked my way into a job working as a corporate coach and trainer, which is something that I'd kind of always thought about doing. And I pitched B Corp to the property consultancy, and they were just like, no, this makes no sense. So I was with them for about 18 months. Then I joined this corporate training company. Pitched B Corp to them. They got it because they were a very values aligned, family run business. But they were really busy, and there was like a lot going on, and they just didn't have the headspace for it. And then unfortunately got made redundant from them after about 9 months. And so back to the sort of like, I need to go and get a job. But by this point, I realized I was fundamentally unemployable. Because you look at all the job ad descriptions, and it's like, no, you don't have a great culture. If you're telling me that you have a great culture, I look back to all the big corporates, it's like, no. And, I got down to the final two for sales manager for the South Island for 2 degrees for their mobile phone stuff. And I walked out of the interview just going, but I just don't care about selling mobile phones. Like, if I have to, I've got to G up a team of 30 people, get them excited about selling more mobile phones than Telecom or Spark, whatever it's like. But I really don't care. So I was like, And so, I kept telling everyone else about this amazing B Corp thing. And I just thought, well, okay, maybe I should try and do something around that. So I started my company initially, and because I'd come from the corporate trading and from a sales background, initially I mainly only offered sales trading. So working with companies that were trying to change the world, it's like, well, if I can help you come up with a better sales strategy, taking all the learnings, it looks like put so much effort into you being a great salesperson in the medical device world, because you have to be, because like I say, you're dealing with very smart, highly educated people, so you have to be able to know the the psychological tips and tricks to be able to get them on board. So I was like, well, if I could take that skill set and be able to help challenger companies that are doing good, that's a pretty good place to start. So yeah, I did that. Certified my business as B Corp number 4 in 2016, and then after probably a few months, my everyone was just, oh, Tim's just going on this bloody B Corp thing. Eventually, one of my mates, Hannah, was like, actually, that B Corp thing you keep me on about, I think I might want to do it. I was like, cool. She's like, but I don't know how to do it. I was like, well, I'll sit down and see what I can do for you. So she paid me in a cup of tea and a slice of cake, and took her through the assessment. And I was like, well, I think you could probably claim that there. I think what you said I think it sounds pretty good. I think you're doing that. Anyway, she passed. I was like, huh, okay. Anyway, the next mate rang me and his same thing. I was like, yeah. And he goes, look, I'll come around to the office. I'll get a curry and we'll have a couple of beers. So I got paid. So inflation went from pot of tea and a slice of cake to 2 beers and a curry. Again, like just sort of winged it. Like, yeah, I reckon you could probably claim that. And I think that sounds like you do that. And he passed. And then suddenly I get a call from somebody I don't know. There's, oh, hey, someone's mentioned that you do this B Corp stuff and you might be able to help us. I was like, I guess so. And he's like, cool. How much do you charge? I don't know. I'll get back to you. So I was like, I don't know, $400. And he's like, okay, cool. So suddenly I start getting people ringing me. And so, yeah, here we are, however many years later, helping people do B Corp. So I completely fell into it. It was like it was not on the plan at all to do what I'm doing, what I've been doing. But yeah, so to date, I've helped over about a third of the New Zealand B Corps actually to certify, and possibly had a hand in helping some of them, the others, at least connect to B Corp in the beginning if they haven't used my services. So yeah, here we are. Careful what you wish for. All from a medieval history degree.
Yeah, absolutely. And it looks like it's finally come together for you in terms of balancing the values as well as using your skill set. For the listeners, do you want to talk a little bit more about what B Corp is and being certified? Because some people have heard the word and they might not know, and some people know it, but they're not quite sure of the process. So just a little bit of a balance for both audiences.
Yeah, totally. So B Corp is a third-party independent certification that verifies your social and environmental performance, essentially. As it stands currently, it looks across 5 key areas of your business, and you, on this initial self-assessment tool, you need to score a minimum of 80 out of 200 points on that tool to then be able to submit and go through for independent verification by B Lab. So B Lab is a non-profit organization that administers and runs the certification framework. But if you get through that process, audit process with them, you become a B Corp. So some people get confused, think there's 2 different systems. So yeah, it basically looks at your social and environmental performance as a business. There are typically claims that companies are making as an organization. By going through B Corp, you get that independently verified, so that you can go, yep, we genuinely are doing those against an international framework, into an international benchmark. Next year, there's going to be some changes coming to the framework. So it's moving from this points-based system to, I think it's 7 sections now, where you have to score minimum. There's no score. There are minimum mandatory requirements across each of the 7 sections. So it used to be one of the criticisms of B Corp was, well, theoretically, you can do really well under one section and do averagely across all the others. And it's like, well, yeah, theoretically, but I've never seen that in any of the companies I've helped. Like, everyone has scored well across all 5, and some have then done exceptionally well in one, but they've still got that baseline. But that's been one of the criticisms. So yeah, they're moving away from this point system to basically either you're a B Corp or you're not. Whereas at the minute, it's kind of you are a B Corp or you're not, but there's a scale, a point scale, which if like basically 150 point B Corp, 160. I think Patagonia typically sits at like that 150, 160 historically. Like, that's a really high performing B Corp. Whereas if you sneak in with an 80.1, it's kind of like, yeah, like you're a B Corp, but there's clearly room for you to maneuver and do more good. So yeah, that's basically what it's about.
And for someone thinking about the cost of implementing it, do you want to give them a little bit of advice on what they need to consider?
Yeah, I'd say probably one of the big things is just like, don't wait too long. So I'm up in Auckland next week helping a company with their B Corp. They've been sitting on it, thinking about it for years. They were told it was quite a big process, quite onerous, so they've kind of kept delaying it. And I'm like, actually, we can probably get through the bulk of it in a day. And they're like, really? And I'm like, well, yeah, I'll just lock you in a room and make you do it. And they're like, huh, okay, we thought it was going to take us like 3 years. Well, no, it will do if you just keep not doing it. So I think that the key thing is to go and look at the impact assessment, which is the like the framework, the platform. It's completely free to go and create an account and just start looking at the questions. Just go and have a look, see if it's for you. In terms of the cost, so there's going to be a time cost for you going through the assessment. If you engage a consultant like me, there's a cost there. And then the only other cost is your certification fee, which is based on a sliding scale of your revenue. So basically, the bigger you are, the more you pay. Entry level is about 2.5K, I think it is, for the entry level certification fee, which does kind of typically put off a lot of the smaller businesses, which is a bit of a shame. But it costs them so much to pay the auditors to be able to do the job that they used to, I think it used to be maybe around about $1,000 for the lowest tier, but on that they were losing money taking people through the certification. So it's kind of like a balancing act here of, yes, we want to get some small businesses through, but we're losing money when we're doing it. So yeah.
And what sort of size business do you think start considering in terms of scale and size of the business?
For me, I always say it comes around to more about mindset and intent. I mean, my business is just me, and I'm a B Corp, so it's completely doable. Typically, I guess in many ways, like the ideal size is a medium privately owned company. So super big companies, typically there's lots of inertia, there's boards involved, there's, you've got to get all the teams aligned and it's got to fit into the strategic directives and blah, 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 blah. And then the CEO changes and they go, no, we're not doing any of that stuff. So that's like a bit of a nightmare. Small companies, quite often, like I say, the cost might be prohibitive, but also actually just making the time because you're doing everything. You're the team maker, you're the product manager, you're the marketer, you're the salesperson, finance person. So sometimes that can just be challenging. So yeah, the ideal company is typically medium-sized, privately owned. The CEO or founder is the decision maker. They go, yes, I see why we should be doing this. We're going to do this. 9 times out of 10, the people that do it and who I would be helping as well if they engage a consultant is they typically don't have a sustainability person. And I normally say, actually, you're better off not having a sustainability manager. And it typically goes to head of ops, finance, HR, or marketing, or the sort of the person who just gets stuff done. There's normally like one person in that medium-sized company who special projects are, hey, Azora, we got this cool thing for you to do. And you're like, excellent, I'll do it with the 3 other special things you gave me last month. It's typically that person. And the reason why I say don't have a sustainability specialist is because the idea or the ideal is if you can spread that B Corp knowledge and it's not just sustainability, it's not just, carbon footprint or waste management. It's like, it's broader than that. It looks at how you treat your workers. It's like how transparent and ethical are we as a business? You want that spread across the company. Like you want your marketing team knowing what your code of ethics is and what your ethical marketing policy is. You don't want that sitting in one central hub with one person who's like the oracle or the font of all knowledge. So having a team leader who can push the project, yes, but distributing the concept, and that's another way to sort of save the time factor, is actually getting the team involved on the project and distributing the ownership. So it also brings the purpose to life, because by itself, any assessment program or tool is pretty boring and quite dry and not that exciting. But if you can get a whole team around the community section and go, actually, what do we do for our community? And what volunteering have we done? Or can we go and find a charity to go and partner with in a more meaningful way than, I'm not saying just giving people money is not a good thing, but there might be a more meaningful connection you could have with a charity to create a more long-term partnership where it elevates the level of sort of meaning and purpose that the team have in their day to day, and it does some good. And it's like, oh, that's like, now we're getting into like the secret sauce and putting the rational, material, scientific elements of, do you do X? Yes. How much of that do you do? With, okay, well, why do we do that? And why does that make us feel good? And that's where B Corp allows you to bring that together. Whereas I've never come across that in any other certification framework. I mean, maybe, I don't know, fair trade, there might be an element of that, like you get to connect and see where things are coming in your supply chain. But this element of like connecting purpose and engagement with the team with a certification, with that external validation is pretty special for B Corp.
There's a whole human element to it, as well as the side where you're actually having measurable outcomes as well, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah,
It's really interesting, and there might be some people out there that are thinking, okay, I go through this process, I get certified. What's in it for me? So, do you want to talk a little
yeah,
bit more about that as well, and then
yeah,
we'll.
yeah. So the way I kind of look at it, or suggest people think about it, is what is the big thing you're trying to achieve, or what's the big challenge that you're trying to remove in your business. And typically for most CEOs and business owners, it's I need more revenue, or need more customers, I need more and better talent, or I need to retain the great talent I've got, or I might need to try and get some investment on board to scale my business to do more good. Those are it's in typically those are the buckets that the challenges sit, or the opportunities sit for a CEO. B Corp is this lever that you can use to pull in any or all of those parts of your business, and possibly give you some acceleration to getting to where you want to be better. So there's reams of evidence that shows that being a B Corp will create a more resilient business. So if you look at survivorship through the pandemic, B Corp's outperformed business as usual. Similar data collected post GFC, B Corps were more resilient to the GFC than non B Corps. The reason for that, I think, is because if you've got really great supply chain relationships, if you've got good customer relationships, if you've got good employee relationships, and you're doing something meaningful, and you've got a way to verify and prove that you're doing all of that, then people understand the good that you do, and they want you to be around. Whereas if you're what I call big evil bastards Inc., and you're just there about making as much money as possible, well, when it comes to a tough economic time, if you've been really nasty to me as a supplier, well, I'm not really going to go out my way to make sure that you get what you need, because you've not been that nice to me. So I think there's an element of this business for good idea that if you generally treat everyone with a bit of respect and dignity, it's calmer almost. So yeah, definitely up to positives around revenue and profitability, employee engagement, satisfaction, retention, and attraction, access to investment, and the supply chain. That's a big thing, particularly for Kiwi-based businesses. Like if you're in the export game, we're seeing more and more US-based, larger companies, or European large companies. Like, hey, we need to know who's in our supply chain, and being able to go back and go, hey, here's our B Corp cert, tick, yeah, happy days. Even seeing that a little bit of pressure from the finance sector, in the banking world, they're having to think about who they're lending money to. And if you're in some controversial or risky industries now, there's high possibility that even a high street bank's going to be like, sorry, we can't lend you that money. Whereas conversely, if you've got an independent certification, I mean, probably the two best ones. Obviously, clearly, I'm not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. But what I understand, so with Kiwi Bank, if you're looking for a green loan to get investment to do something pro-social or environmental, you get access to better rate of finance. If you're a B Corp, you get an even better rate. And then ASB, just by being a B Corp, you can access their sustainability linked funding. So you get access to cheaper capital. So one of my clients, Rotorua Canopy Tools, the day after they certified, they did a big press release. They got picked up in the Herald. Their bank manager rang them and was like, oh, hey, Paul, I didn't realize you guys were a B Corp, but yeah, you just saved 30K on the loan you've got with us just by being a B Corp. So yeah, get really clear on what you're trying to achieve in your business, but go and have a look at, okay, how could this B Corp thing help me? Because sometimes there's stuff that it can do. Increase it, like I said, we've definitely I've had a couple of clients this last year where we've been told we need to have an external certification, and B Corp is the best because it's globally recognized, independently verified social and environmental performance. There's no other framework that looks across all of that. So
Thanks, Tim. And you talked a lot about values throughout the process of the B Corp, as well as your own journey in transitioning.
Yeah.
So I want to talk a little bit more about your own values. And for our audience, if you could only pick 3 values, can you explain to us what are your 3 top values that you try to live by, and why those 3?
That is a really good question. I think for me, like honesty or trustworthiness is a really key one. Just, almost like an element of virtue about yourself. Just do what's right and, be transparent about it. One of my favorite words is indefatigable. It's such an awful word to remember, but it's a great Scrabble word if you can get that in. It basically means like you're really hard to tire. And Sir Ernest Shackleton, the ill-fated southern Antarctica explorer, his family motto is through endurance we conquer, which is why they called the ship the Endurance, and that has really been a byword for my life. Like every sports team I've played for, like even the B Corp stuff, is like I'm the underdog. Like there's no expectation that you're going to win here, and it is pretty much just pure bloody mindedness is going to get me through this. And sometimes that's good, but sometimes it's quite exhausting. And you kind of go, actually, maybe I am defatigable. Maybe I'm not as indefatigable as I thought. So it's a double-edged sword, that one. And the last one for me is just energy. Like the one piece of feedback that I consistently get from any engagement I have with a company is, wow, Tim, you just bought the energy. And it's like, well, if you can't have some fun while you're trying to change the world, like you're doing it wrong. And I think that's where a lot of sort of do good, let's change the world, it's sackcloth, it's self-flagellation, it's like you're evil, you're bad, boo. And it's like, turns out people don't want to hang out with you when you're like that. But if you're like, hey, you think your party's good, you should come check out our party because our music's way better, the beer tastes sweeter, and the food is amazing. It's like, oh, actually, yeah, your party does sound more fun than my party. Oh, well, I don't want to miss out on that. And so, yeah, trying to bring that sort of fun, childlike energy, humor to what I do. Like the B Corp assessment's pretty boring. Even if I can just put a couple of dad jokes into it to make someone giggle halfway through it, like that's enough for me.
Thank you. And those are some very powerful words that you've used there. In terms of looking back at yourself when you were younger and where you are today, was there anything that you would look back and say, hey, I'm really surprised at the person that I am here today? Or do you think there was a stream that went through that you can now look back and say, this is me?
Yeah, that's a big part of like some of the other work that I offer is around that purpose work, like helping companies and individuals work out like, actually, who am I? Who could I be? Why am I here? Type stuff. What is really one comment that I got, I would have been about 8 or 9, and the Mrs. McIntyre, teacher at the primary school I was at, in one of the end of year reports, Timothy would make for a great vicar. And it's like, what? It's like, where did that come from? It's like, it just made no sense. But then it does kind of feel like it's, the gospel according to That B Corp. It's like spreading the good word. That has really, it's like, that's really interesting. Like, how did she see that in me? It's like, wow.
Oh,
so yeah, that's
pretty
one,
profound.
Yeah, that's like one. That's the
Yeah.
one like that did. But yeah, I had no idea. I mean, even the fact that I'm living in New Zealand, like, I was like, that was not on the radar at all. It was like, go to school, go to uni, get a job, probably end up in London. That was like probably the plan. But yeah, when I was living in Australia, one of the guys, one of the friends of the family, the dad of the family I was living with, one of his good mates, he was in the army, an ex-army guy as well. And he was just like, Gary Butterfield, I think was his name. And he was just like a ball of energy, really, really nice guy. And a piece of advice he gave to me, I was fairly fresh off the boat in Aussie. And he said, Tim, all you got to do is keep shaking hands, smiling and saying good day, and good things will come your way. And I'm like, that's probably a pretty good mantra for life. And I just feel like, yeah, if you just go about, like, opportunities will pop up. And it's like, well, even moving to New Zealand, it's like, well, I get a return ticket. It's going to cost me like 400 quid, whatever it was back then. Worst case scenario, if I don't like it and I break up with the girl and I don't get a job, I can come home. And I've had a holiday in New Zealand for a month. It's like,
it's a win-win either way. Hey?
Yeah, it's like, just give it a go. You don't know. And I think it's quite interesting. Part of me feels, is there an element of fate in people's lives? Like, we can go really medieval here. Like in medieval sort of Nordic Scandinavian mythologies, they believe there was the three Norns, the three ladies who spin one. It's like a strand of wool. One of them spins the wheel, one of them measures it, and the other one cuts it. And it's like, when your time has come, like, fates. And I guess it's the same in a lot of sort of pagan mythologies and religious belief systems. Part of me is like, well, I don't know, maybe there is a predestined thing, because I don't know. It's like, it doesn't feel like I necessarily have chosen to end up where I am, which is kind of interesting. So yeah, that's a whole other podcast.
No, thanks for sharing that. It's always interesting to see what others have to say and how they got there. Before we end for the day, I just want to ask you a question on if you had one magical power or a superpower, what would that be, and why is that?
100%. And this is like, this ties in with like, why did I study history? It's because I want to know. I want to know why and how. And I'd like time travel 100% all day long. It's like, who actually built the pyramids? When did it actually happen? Like, all of it. Show me, like, who, Jesus, where is he? Show me the thing. Like all of it. Like, Big Bang. What? And to be able to come back and go, you would not believe it. Like, how cool would that be? It's like, no, right, all those history books. Yeah, sorry, Dr. Zavadsky, my history teacher at school. Sorry, Dr. Z, yeah, you were completely out of whack on that stuff. Like, yeah, that was pretty good, but yeah, there's other stuff. Yeah, you were so wrong. Like, that would be so cool. And just to know, like, yeah, how, we're like these meat sacks spinning on this disc of a planet that just so happens to be perfect for meat sacks like us to exist in an infinite universe in infinite universes. Like, why wouldn't you want it? Like, I don't understand why no one wouldn't just choose time travel to go. Just like, please explain all of this.
Awesome. No, thank you so much, Tim. It's been a really fun conversation, and I've really appreciated your time.
No worries. Thanks for the opportunity. Good to chat with you.
Thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation and got as much out of it as I did. As always, if this episode speaks to you, please like, share, and subscribe to Care Beyond Profits. I appreciate you, and until next time, keep caring beyond profits.